Okay, so we are going to talk about journaling. These are like my best friends, like I'm not joking. Journaling is something that is so important to me. It's one of my favorite personal development tools, healing tools, and I wanted to talk about it because I feel like loads of people hear, oh, you should journal, and people don't necessarily know kind of what to do. How does one start journaling if you're new to it? And I feel like loads of people miss out on the benefits. It's honestly so powerful. Like, I am someone who has done therapy, and I often have found journaling even more effective. I've had some amazing breakthroughs. I have manifested things from things that I wrote down in my journal. I found it so healing sometimes just to like release things, and I just think everybody should develop a journaling practice. So I'm going to share some of my favorite practices with you. I think I have about 10 of my favorite journaling practices. Because obviously, we're all different, not everything works for everyone, and there are different things for different days. So I'm going to share 10 journaling practices that I use, and hopefully this will be helpful. Okay, so we'll start simple. Let's start with scripting. So you've probably heard of this before. This is where you write in your journal in present tense, as though the things that you would like have already happened and you're sort of just documenting or reflecting on them as they happened. So, if you have certain goals, for instance, let's say a goal of yours is to move into a new house. It's not quite happened yet, but you just want to condition your mind with this reality of this is going to happen. So a way that you can script is you could just write, oh, it feels amazing to be in my new house. Oh, I can't believe it. It just all happened so quickly. It was all so seamless. The house is exactly how I wanted. I love that the garden is south facing. You just talk about this. So the idea of scripting is, even though it hasn't happened yet, you want your mind to think that this is happening now. The reason you want that is because our mind actually does not know the difference between things that are imagined and things that are real. So for instance, you're writing about this dream house. Because the mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not, your reticular activating system will filter your reality to draw those experiences to you because it thinks that's part of your life. So an example of the reticular activating system working in real life is, let's say you're driving down a road. Typically, you won't notice many yellow cars, right? But let's say a friend of yours just bought a yellow car. You're often more likely to start seeing yellow cars. Why? Because that is part of your reality now. Somebody in your life just bought a yellow car, and so your reality is filtering because your mind now deems that this is important to you. And so it's showing you more of that. The fact is, the yellow cars were always there. You just didn't see them because your mind didn't think that that was important information for you. And so it filtered it out. Think about it. There is so much information coming into us every single day. And we would be completely overwhelmed if we took everything in all the time. And so the mind does a brilliant job of kind of filtering out anything that isn't important. It filters that out so that it can focus on the things that are important. So that's why it's very important for us to train our minds to focus on the things that we want, because the way we see the world and the way we experience the world will be different because we will bring more of those experiences to us. So bringing this back, with scripting, you basically want to let your mind know that this is something that's happening in your reality. So this is something that's important to you. And so your reticular activating system will go to work on your behalf. It will go and it will find these things and bring opportunities to you. The fact is, the opportunities were always there. It's just that you were not attuned to them. You weren't thinking in that way. You weren't noticing them because it wasn't important to you. But once you flag it in your mind as something that's important, you'll start noticing these things. You'll notice synchronicities. You'll notice things that you might think are coincidences. And so that's why scripting is so powerful, because you can literally use it to your advantage. And so you filter in the things that you would like. So the point is to get very detailed about the thing that you're writing about, the thing that you're envisioning. You don't just want to kind of write down the facts. you want to know how it will feel. The mind kind of works off of feelings. For instance, when you have a thought, there's generally a feeling that's attached to it, and that's kind of what we hold on to in our body. That's what we hold on to in our mind, is the feeling that something gives us. So when you're scripting, the trick is to get yourself into the feelings, and the way that you can do that is by triggering the 5 senses. The reason you want to embody the feelings is because it makes it more potent. It makes your mind believe it more. If you attach a feeling to something, it becomes so much more real, and so this will kind of up level your scripting if you really get to the feeling level as opposed to just the thinking about or the writing the details of. So how do we get into the feelings? One thing that we can do is we can use our 5 senses. So like I was saying, you're writing about this house. Instead of just saying, oh, I just moved to this new house, it's really nice, it's exactly what I wanted, it's on the perfect street, blah, 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 you can go into more detail. Talk about how it feels when you're in the house. Maybe say, I opened the back door and I could feel the sun on my skin. Okay, that's a lot more detail. You're now introducing like one of your senses. Okay, you're introducing a feeling. You can say, I love the smell when we're baking in my brand new kitchen. It smells so homely. It smells so welcoming. I just love the smell. It smells like cookies all the time and it makes me feel so at home. There you're introducing smell. And you can do that for all of the 5 senses. You can list the things that you see. Really make it like a vivid imagination so that you're feeling those feelings. And honestly, your mind will not know that this is not something that's actually happening. And because your mind doesn't know the difference and your mind thinks this is really happening, it now thinks this is part of your reality. And so your reticular activating system will now start to filter your reality to make you notice any opportunities that will link you to this thing. So for instance, you might notice an open house that's happening. You might notice an advert for a house that's for sale. And so you will draw this experience to you. Now, I'm not saying that this will happen overnight. Obviously, this is something that you need to repeat because you need to train your mind, but it's definitely very powerful and it definitely works. And you can script about anything. It could be about a job that you would like. I have been in situations in the past where I've been frustrated in my job and I wanted something different. And I have literally sat down and written out like my ideal job. And I've written down my ideal salary. I've written down my ideal hours, my ideal working style, where I work, what my manager is like, all of these things. I've done this a couple of times and I've ended up with the exact situation that I scripted about. I've ended up with the exact same job that had the exact salary, the exact type of manager, the exact type of working hours, all of these things. So I am testament to this, and I can tell you 100% that this works. Like, my mind was blown when I first did this. My next journaling hack is what I like to call, who is she? I don't know if other people do this or what they call it, but this is my name for it. And obviously this applies to boys, girls, whatever your pronoun is, change it to suit yourself. And what I mean by this is I like to get into the mindset of a person who has achieved a certain goal that I have. So a couple of examples. Let's use YouTube, for instance. Who is the version of me who has a successful YouTube channel? What are her habits? So for instance, the version of me who has a successful YouTube channel has a regular upload schedule. Maybe they have a process for filming videos. Maybe they have an editor to help them so that they can save time and be more efficient. The successful version of me who has a YouTube channel is obviously able to overcome things like self-doubt, is able to block out negativity from haters online and things like that. So these are all qualities that this version of me would have. So in order for me to become that person and to get to that level, these are some of the things that I need to embody. And so it's almost like you're creating a bridge. So you're seeing where you are now and you're seeing where you want to go. And so you're going to start adopting those qualities, those behaviors, those mindsets. And before you know it, you will have morphed into this person. You will have literally created a bridge between where you are now and that person, and you can walk over that bridge and become this new version. You literally step into this new version of yourself simply by adopting these habits, adopting these behaviors, and taking on this new way of life. And obviously this applies to anything. So let's use an example of a relationship. Let's say you want to attract a guy that has a high profile job, is very cultured, is blah, 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 all the things, right? Let's say you have a list, you have your preferences. Think about who is somebody that that kind of person would date. Am I embodying the kind of person that that person would date? If not, you can write down the list of the things that you would like in this person, but remember that kind of person also has their criteria, right? And so are you matching that criteria? Because it's unlikely, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's unlikely that you would be a match for that person unless you're operating at a similar level. So in order to attract that kind of person in your life, you need to figure out who you need to become. And so that's where I ask myself this kind of question: who is she? Who is that person who is naturally attracted to that kind of person that, for instance, I'm interested in? So you can start to write down these qualities. If the person I'm trying to attract is somebody who prioritizes their health, it's unlikely that they're going to want to be with a couch potato, not just because of aesthetic reasons, but because of lifestyle. You know, if they are fit and healthy, it's likely that they work out often, it's likely that they're quite active, and so they're going to want a partner who can come on that journey with them and who can fit into their lifestyle and also be active. So if that's something you want and that's where you want to get to, you then have to be prepared to be that kind of person as well. And you ask yourself that question: who is the kind of person that this guy would date or whatever? Who is she? Is she somebody who is down for anything, or is she somebody who's quite rigid in her routines? Is she somebody who has a big social circle? Does she have lots of her own things going on? Would this kind of guy want somebody who's very codependent, or would they want somebody who is quite independent? And so you kind of work out, who is she? Who is this person? And you can kind of decide from there. Are these things that I want to adopt? Is this genuinely how I want to live my life? If yes, then great. You now have a recipe, you now have a formula, you now have tangible things that you can work on and change so that you can morph into that person and naturally attract the kind of person that you want. Or you can look at this list and say, you know what, actually, that's not how I would like to live my life. And you can kind of start over and see, how would you like to live your life? So I love this idea of the kind of who is she type of journaling, where you literally sit down and you can make a list of what makes up this kind of person that you are trying to become. So another quite easy way to journal, particularly if you're just starting, a very simple practice that you can do is just kind of like a brain dump. Especially if you're somebody who overthinks a lot or gets overwhelmed, or maybe if you're struggling with things like anxiety and you just need an outlet. Sometimes you don't want to talk to somebody about it. Maybe there isn't somebody that you can talk to, but you can always use your journal and you can treat it as though it is a person that you're talking to. And you can literally just write down your feelings, just offload. And the beautiful thing about this is you don't need to worry about being judged. It's private. You also don't need to worry about, I think sometimes we can worry that we're always talking about ourselves or that we're not giving other people the opportunity to talk and things like that. Whereas this is just for you to offload. And it's amazing how light you can feel afterwards. It's amazing how you can have random breakthroughs. Sometimes when you just have things written down on paper, as opposed to thoughts just swirling around in your head, you can gain so much clarity just by seeing things written down. Or sometimes, you're struggling with a decision or something and you just write down without thinking too much about it, all the things that you're thinking. Just let your thoughts flow. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It doesn't need to make sense. Just write down, just kind of like let things flow from your brain, put pen to paper And it's amazing sometimes when you look back at that, when you read over it, sometimes things just become so clear. Sometimes you literally just need to get the thoughts out of your head. You see it in front of you, things become so clear, or at the very least, you just feel so much lighter. You feel like you've offloaded, and so you kind of feel like you can operate again. And I find that a great time to do this is at the end of the night. It's a great practice. Let's say, for instance, you have a very stressful job, or you've just had a rough day, or something's gone on, there's lots on your mind. It's a great way to release it from your mind, release everything into the journal, and reset. Once you let everything go, you can kind of go to sleep, and you're not going to sleep with those things on your mind. You know, you've kind of put them to one side, and sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes people just need to write down their thoughts, right? Because sometimes you think, oh, I need to retain all of this because I'll forget this and I'll forget that. And it can really make you less efficient, less productive, because you have so much on your mind, and you're just not free to be creative. You're not free to kind of problem solve and things like that. And so it's just a very good practice to incorporate into your routines, just to offload, especially if, for instance, you don't have access to a therapist, or you don't have somebody close to you that you can speak to, somebody you trust. It's very effective and can be very healing. Okay, so the next type of journaling that I want to mention is journaling prompts. Now, this is one that probably most people have heard of. If you're familiar with the personal development world, you'll definitely have heard of journaling prompts. Everyone and their sister has one. And for anyone who doesn't know, this is just where somebody has come up with a load of probing questions that get you to kind of dive deep into a particular topic, or to reflect on a situation, or to understand your habits. It's a great way of learning more about yourself, learning to understand yourself on a deeper level, understanding your patterns and things like that. And the fact that it's guided, because the prompts are there for you, it again is a good one for beginners, because there's kind of no barrier to get started. There isn't this like, what do I do? What do I write? The prompts are there for you. You're simply answering questions. It's like therapy, I guess. Questions similar to a therapist or a coach would ask you, but instead of it being face-to-face and in person, these questions or these prompts are prepared, and you answer them in your journal. So you just write down your answers to these, and often you can get lots of insights. You can think about things in different ways, gain new perspectives, because often these questions are not things that you would typically think about on a daily basis. We're all very busy. We often don't have time to reflect on things as much as we would like. Sometimes we have certain topics or certain things that we also find quite confronting, and so we purposely avoid looking too much into it. So this kind of forces you to address things. It asks you questions directly, and it kind of forces you to look deeper into things, or to consider things in different ways. And so you can gain new perspectives, you can gain insight into perhaps, behaviors that you have, traits that you have, things like that. Or you can just gain clarity. So if you have a decision that you're stuck, you're trying to make a certain decision, maybe the prompts are asking questions about this in different ways, that through answering these questions, it becomes so clear to you the actions that you need to take. As well as you can use it for goal setting. You can also have prompts that ask you, what do I need to do on a monthly basis in order to hit this target? Or who do I need to eliminate from my life in order to evolve and become the next version of myself? So there's lots of different directions that journal prompts can take you in, depending on what you want to get from it. And typically journal prompts are centered around a specific thing. So I think you can go online and look up, journal prompts for whatever it is that you're trying to work on, or feel free to write in the comments if you'd like some journal prompts on anything in particular. I'm more than happy to make some for free. I used to have a coaching business, and I often made journaling prompts for my clients as sort of homework. So I'm more than happy to create some. If you guys would like any, just let me know in the comments and I can definitely do that. So initially this was meant to be just one video, but I started filming, I started elaborating on things, and it's become quite long. So we're going to split it into 2 parts. This is part 1 and I will upload part 2 next week. So if you found this useful, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share this video with anyone that you think will find it useful. Pass it on, tell your friends, tell your family, tell anyone who you think could benefit from the content, and I'll see you in my next video.